I'm moving on to the next panel discussion that we're going to have. So we have with us today Dr. Shannon Terry, who's the Director of Program Integration Strategy from TEA, doing some fabulous things. I'm sure, Shannon, you're going to update us on some of the stuff going on.
You bet.
And, yeah, and then Dr. Carrie Murphy, who's the CTO from Deer Park Independent School District. I'm going to make sure you're unmuted. Yeah, you can unmute yourself, Dr. Murphy. And then the last person I'm looking for is Dr. Shelby Blackman, who's the STEM instructional specialist from Houston ISD. And I don't see her on here yet, but we're a couple minutes from the top of the hour. But we can get started just sort of framing this panel discussion, because there's a lot to talk about from these three different viewpoints. You know, Dr. Terry's, Dr. Murphy's, Dr. Blackman's, all in different sort of parts of the whole machine here in K-12 education in Texas. So I think I have another slide here to share with you. Yeah, here's our three, all wonderfully adorable people, amazing. Like, I don't know how we're so lucky we have the most beautiful people in Texas. And I miss being together with everybody when we come there physically to do events. It was fantastic to see actual live people. But now we're here in this, virtual way together with a lot of Texans. So everyone that's on the line as an attendee, feel free to pop up and ask questions as we go. But the first thing I want to do is I want to have Shannon talk a little bit about what's going on in TEA right now. And then also wrap in Dr. Murphy as we watch for Dr. Blackman to join. So go ahead, Shannon, give us a little bit of an overview. Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. So thankful to be here with colleagues across the state of Texas and more specifically South Texas. As you know, we're in this together, and all of us have adopted a mind for the future with the future in mind for sure. The agency has been very busy, as you know, working since probably mid-March to provide first instructional continuity through what was termed the Texas Home Learning Initiative. And there's been a 1.0 version, a 2.0, and now we're in 3.0. And what's been interesting in the journey is originally the focus was on instructional continuity, as we really looked at how do we deploy resources, curricular resources? How do we support the field? What are the variables that districts across Texas are dealing with? As you know, our landscape is very diverse. We have very rural districts to urban districts and varying needs in between. We also knew that our students, our learners were at home, and that parents were stepping into the space in a different way than they had historically. So we had to consider their partnership that we valued all along in a different realm, looking at them through a different lens. So in the 1.0 version, and with compressed timelines, the state put forward the Texas Home Learning website as a way to communicate and provide access to the field to some high quality vetted resources that initially took the form, if you will, of a series of PDFs, units, daily lessons. They were very much crafted to support folks that were not typically assigned to deliver instructions, such as our parents. But also to support our districts with a provision of resources that could be both mailed and accessed online. Then, as we learned that COVID was going to be a longer term situation than originally anticipated by some, we moved to 2.0. And 2.0 is when all of us began to talk about how do we ensure that our students don't lose ground, and what might that look like? We had all been gearing up in March across the state to support our students through summer learning opportunities. And so Texas Home Learning 2.0 was designed to that end. What I'm failing to mention as I go through the very high level overview of our journey, if you will, is all of the complexity with each step. And as you know, we want to ensure that all students have access. Very focused and assigning priority to equity. And we've learned and dealt with issues of connectivity. How do we serve our students who are served through special education? How do we reach our students that do not have connectivity? When students are not engaged, is it because they don't have connectivity, or is it related to some other variables? As we look at what's the new data we need to collect. So then we went from Texas Home Learning to 2.0 to 3.0, and that's where we are now. And many of you have probably been following along, either hearing from your superintendents who are on weekly calls with the commissioner, or you've visited the Texas Education Agency COVID response page and looked at the instructional continuity support. So Texas Home Learning 3.0 provides for districts across the state free access to a statewide LMS, which Schoology was adopted through the emergency procurement process. We're also interacting with vendors across the nation who are adapting curriculum and or are in the Lone Star State, who are providing a comprehensive curriculum for deployment through the LMS that we've adopted at the state level, which happens to be Schoology. But we're also articulating different pathways for the content, Texas Home Learning content, to be able to be deployed in different ways. It is quite a comprehensive project, and I'm happy to visit more about it, but I don't want to dominate the space, and excited about what we're able to do and learn from you through this conversation.
That's awesome. Awesome overview. Okay, thank you. And I think we have Dr. Shelby Blackman on. You're going to have to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then we're going to loop back in Dr. Murphy as well. So Dr. Blackman, can you join and tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Hello, I'm Dr. Shelby Blackman. I am a STEM instructional specialist at a high school here in HISD. And right now we are frantically trying to figure out how to get our students' attendance marked present so that everybody is comfortable with the attendance and that we're meeting the state. But as far as online learning with our students, we have a partnership with NASA. And so we've been able to, this summer we had a STEM summer virtual camp, and I was able to create STEM packs that the students had to come pick up from the school, but it allowed them to be able to do virtual labs and virtual interactions with their teachers without having to provide the materials for themselves, because that was something that we were really concerned about as far as getting the students the materials and how were we really going to get them engaged in the labs. You know, we have vendors of CK12 and other simulations that will help, but having that hands-on experience really does allow the student to learn a little bit more. And so we wanted to figure out I like a 3D model of how the students could learn virtually, but actually have the supplies. So that's what I'm working on right now, is just trying to really take the pressure off our teachers and really just give them the ease that this virtual learning is going to be great for them and for our students.
That's great. And, you know, we mentioned also that there's been teachers telling stories about what they've been doing with STEM for the at-home learners. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we mentioned was, you know, our daughter did home laundry experiments long ago using different types of detergent. Mm-hmm. Getting some stuff dirty in advance and finding out how detergent works and looking at the meaning of detergent, what goes into detergent. It's been really interesting, you know, as we come out of quarantine, what's been happening in that space. So thank you for sharing on that. We'll come back with more questions. Dr. Murphy, I know you shared with us a lot of what's happening there yesterday. Can you turn your attention a little bit to talking about what's gone on in your district with the transition, the mutation of things in terms of your model overall?
Yes. In fact, I just came out of a meeting earlier with our Department of Instruction and how we can better support our teachers as they're making this transition. But there's a lot of anxiety with our teachers because they feel like now they're getting this remote learning. Now we're going to bring kids into the mix, and how many kids are coming, and we don't have that final number. But I do want to share something that one of our campus technologists said, and we're reminding ourselves, you are free to use it. He had to tell a teacher, we're not in a microwave situation, we're in a slow cooker. And so we're not done yet. So let's just let's cook with it. And so we got a kind of kick out of what he was saying is that we're in this transition. We're all experimenters. We're all problem solvers. And so we have to work together. I think our teachers are so used to us just providing, here's the next answer for the next step. And we're figuring it out together, and how we can, and it's not just technology figuring out, which I love. I really love. I finally think we've gotten to that transition that it's everybody's issue. So a little while ago, I was working with some of our other specific directors, curricular directors, on how to make all these different parts work. How do you work with do the hybrid situation with the at-home learner and the in-person learner at the same time, or do we do that? So in making that next transition, we are watching a little bit, we are relying on each other and looking at, and just knowing that we may try something, but it's gonna, and it could possibly fail. But we all have to learn to think outside that box and look at what's it going to look like? What's testing going to look like? What is, as we work with our special needs students, both parameters, and making sure that we're doing the best for each kid. So that's where we are sitting today, looking at that next part and try to predict, but we really can't say what it's going to be like for the whole next year. So how do we prepare, pull some of the load off of our teachers, and feel like that we're doing the best for our kids?
That's awesome. Yeah, so you're I love that we're in a slow cooker, not a microwave. I get the image in my mind, Dr. Murphy, of like the frog in the pot, slowly boiled. It's a very interesting moment. So we have the three of you, and you each are at sort of different angles. And Dr. Terry, you're up at the state angle, like looking at the whole picture and sort of trying to plug in as an entity, not you alone, but there's a lot of team members there, different parts into this thing. And I know we've had conversations about this mutation moment and where is it going. So I want to address that a little bit, and I want to have Dr. Blackman and Dr. Murphy talk about this as well, because it's the opinion of the EduJedi Learning Council, much discussions over the last 7 years of being on the road in some 30-some cities a year. Now we don't get to see people anymore, but that's okay. And we've come to the conclusion that there's basically a real issue in moving from brick and mortar to an embedding of a lot of technology. There's this friction in space and time, right? The use of space and the use of time. We're in the middle of a mutation, and it's going somewhere, and it may be going towards that ultra level of consumer experience digitally that changes the structure of the way education institutions manifest themselves. Right now, they're mostly manifested in grade and class structure. That is not the way things are organized in other entities that are delivering a lot of human interaction, like a lot of what's going on right now in healthcare, as well as like UPS or FedEx in terms of their execution models. So Dr. Terry, can you go first and just sort of talk about what has been happening for you intellectually as you have gone through this moment?
I would love to do that. I would start out by saying that historically, and even, and I really appreciate Dr. Murphy, what you shared around the unknowns. I heard the Van Morrison song in my head, you know, we're off into the mystic for a little bit. And it's true. We've had an over-reliance, I think, in education on time as the currency of learning. And so that over-reliance perhaps on time has really challenged our ability to explore different opportunities to deliver meaningful instruction and, more importantly, design learning experiences for students. I think what the pandemic has really highlighted for all of us is that, and many of us were already championing this work forward, is we need an instructional model that isn't dependent on where students are learning. And I think that's the most profound realization that I've had in the last few months and more. I also think that we've really brought to the center of the conversation issues around equity and how complex all of the different equity lenses we need to hold. I think that people in the field are beginning to look at how can we democratize opportunities for students? How can we create equitable ecosystems in this digital realm where students receive relevant, timely, customized, individualized, and personalized opportunities with the goal of equity and rigorous learning opportunities? The other thing that's occurred to me as I speak from a stream of consciousness, I wish I could say, well, the first thing and the second and the third, but I tend to be a very global, random thinker, is the idea that I don't know that we focused, as I mentioned earlier, on time. And I think if we can figure out some of the secrets of time and how we manage time, and all of those of us in the space during this time can really have impact. But where I was going is, I think in the field of education, we have really focused a lot as well on the what. So in my reflections and speaking on a personal note, all of us with best intentions, and in my role at the state, and probably many of you in districts, we were really quick to wonder, how do we get the what out there? And even if the pandemic hadn't happened, we tend to focus a lot on the what. And I think this situation has really elevated the need to focus on not dismissing the importance of the what, but to focus on the how, the process. There are examples all around us outside of the education sector that have direct application for what we could be doing collectively in service to our students. And I'll stop there so I can hear from Dr. Blackman and Dr. Murphy as well.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome comments, and I'm sure we'll come back to that and go deeper. So Dr. Blackman, something you said is really relevant in this conversation, in that the first thing that you're having to worry about, and I'm sure you don't want to worry about this, is the attendance. And so that's so relevant with what Dr. Terry just said, because it's the how, right? So you still are hamstrung with things that seem sort of like from ancient history in terms of going towards the light. So what are your thoughts on, this structural issue of use of time from your viewpoint?
I think from our viewpoint, just listening to our teachers, like yesterday was we had a complete, obviously, so I don't, in Houston ISD, our teachers are not reporting to campus at all. Like some districts, I think they have their teachers. Our teachers are completely virtual. And so a lot of the teachers, they're being really flexible, which is great. However, it is that time component. There's an overwhelming unfamiliarity to what they're doing, right? And which is with all of us. I mean, we all are kind of doing that. But I think there's a boundary that teachers are finding from just me talking with the teachers, that they're finding it hard when to stop, like when to stop working. Because I mean, in education, our work never stops. But as a teacher leaves a campus, you know, they leave a campus at 4 or 5 o'clock, and when they leave, you know, their work goes with them. Like teachers take grades home, but now it's with them all the time. And so I think this time is very valuable, more so now, just because we really have to figure out a way to help our teachers and encourage our teachers to create those boundaries. And even with myself, I find myself sometimes working at 11 and 12 o'clock at night, just because my laptop is in front of me all the time now. And so I think, like, you know, like I said, we are working on attendance policies and trying right now. I mean, our students come back on Monday, virtually, but we just now, you know, really as a district, and we figured out a way to handle attendance as far as meeting state standards, but it's a lot of work on the teacher. And so we tried to find a plan for our school that kind of took that. The teacher's still going to have to do the reporting, but giving them that time back, that they not feel like they're bombarded with the logistics of the whole model, right? So really just finding a strategy. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I'm really
go
glad
ahead.
you said the word logistics. My favorite word right now is logistics. So I'm glad you said that, but go ahead and what your other thought was.
No, I was just going to say really trying to find a strategy that take, and I think I've said this phrase a couple of times, but I think I say it all the time now, is just take the ease and give the teachers back that vibrance of teaching and take the logistics, because it's logistically difficult right now for a teacher to like, they're overwhelmed with the logistics is basically what I'm trying to say in summing it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I just, before I come back over to you, Dr. Murphy, I'm gonna step back and I'm just say, you know, I'm not an educator. Leilani Cawthon, publisher of Learning Council. I'm a news media and research person. My father was an educator. So I come looking at this with a big, giant, you know, curious mind. That's really what I'm looking at. And so I step back and I see what Becky Landa just said and Dr. Murphy has said earlier and a lot of the other panelists that we've had and speakers that we've had. And I see this complication, Shelby, that you've been saying. And if you love teachers, you don't want to do that to them. And so this logistics issue is the mutation issue that is the most critical thing to address. And it's painful to watch how much is being put on the backs of teachers. So my mind is going to the logistics sophistication of those companies in the private sector that you know, they can get an overnight package anywhere in the world in 24 hours. So those structures operate heavily on algorithmic inference, and they carry the weight of the distribution. Whereas we're right now on a model that's entirely and totally distribution from the bureaucracy of what must be known, right? Like pacing guides, down through human distribution. Teachers have to be the distribution point for everything. And they want that and they like that, and we need humans. But maybe a little bit about what you just said, Shelby, is that they're stuck doing, as we move to technology, we got sucked into this logistics world instead of using technology to amplify their skill at direct instruction. That's the trick. That's the trick that I've been looking for. And so over to you, Dr. Murphy. What are your comments on this? Because you're in this center wing of the technology carrying this? What's your viewpoint on what we're talking about?
Well, and I sympathize with Dr. Blackman and the whole thing about attendance, because that seems to be a bone of contention. Last spring, that was one of the big things. The complaints was that, yes, teachers were having a difficult time, and especially our campus technologists, because they were working sometimes 24/7. And where do you draw the line? And, you know, because we live in the world of Amazon comes tomorrow, then even our students are thinking, okay, I did the work at 10 o'clock at night. Why have you not graded it? Or, you know, given me some kind of feedback, because that's so important to them to get that feedback quickly. And even parents are asking for that. So that was one thing that came into our discussion of, do we bring teachers back or not? And we're glad we did. We brought them back to work in their classrooms. That's also one of the big conversations we've had with them is take care of yourself. And our counselors and our whole counseling department have worked hard on how can we support emotionally our teachers, and how can we, a part of my discussion earlier today with staff was, what burden can we carry? But our attendance has been an issue because that's where we receive funding. And we're so concerned about getting those that taken, but so that we can get the funding in. But also, I'm really talking about two thoughts here. So how can we relieve the burden for teachers, knowing that kids have participated, so it counts toward attendance? But there's also the desire, yeah, I've got to do that clerical burden that's on my shoulders. I've got to do that. It's being required. But how do I make sure I've connected with those kids who they like to work, you know, 1 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the afternoon till midnight at night, and I'm you know, an older adult, and my schedule works from 6 in the morning till 5. So we've tried to and sorry, I'm crossing paths in my thoughts here, but one of the things we did was try to get our teachers to limit the time, you know, that they are working, so they can have that family time and they can have some normality. And then we've hired tutors that work till 9 o'clock at night and make themselves available a couple of nights a week. And also my staff stays till 8 o'clock at night to support them, so we can relieve the burden from our teachers in doing that. Is it doing it totally? No. But at least it's a start. And hopefully they're taking advantage of it. I'm hoping students and teachers are taking advantage of that opportunity, that then they do cut it off and they do say, okay, I need to lay it down. But it's very difficult. You know, as a teacher, we like that control. And I'm type A personality, so I understand that well.
Yeah,
Dr.
so-
Murphy, real quick, you took the word out of my mouth. I couldn't, but you said burden, and I just really, that's a great word, and that's the word that I was looking for, and I was stumbling around. But it's a burden. With our teachers are burdened with the logistics of being clerical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and so much to go deeper into, Dr. Murphy, and what you just said, and also, well, all three of you, really. But you're already in a mutation, is what you're saying, right? So you've already added in a service structure for delivery mechanism after hours. So this mutation of structure is occurring. It's just like you said, it's a slow cooker. And so what I have to step back as a strategic plan writer coming out of corporate America and say, this means if you're in slow cooker mode, that management hasn't really stepped back and said, what is the optimum structure for efficiency? And that will cover as many contingencies of execution as needed. So it's a structural issue. And you're already mutating structure. Everyone in America is mutating structure. And the thought pattern is, And then I'd like Dr. Terry to comment on this. The thought pattern is that the traditional model is not coming back the same way it was before. So comments on that, Shannon. What's the water cooler conversation?
Well, there's lots of those. So I'll start by just a quick connection. I'm married to a teacher, and watching him teach virtually and then anticipating students coming back next week has been really a sobering experience, frankly. There are times that we celebrate the success in this environment, and there are times that we laugh at kids' ingenuity, which we really need to take advantage of during this time. I don't know about you guys, but they have figured out Zoom bombing, and I just want to say that we got a great innovative bunch of kiddos coming through. So with that said, I think that the water cooler conversation is around much of what we've alluded to already. That is, we don't know what we don't know, and that it's a very fluid situation. Where my mind went as I listened to Dr. Blackman and Dr. Murphy was to this notion of several things. How do we move from this focus on planning for instruction, which is important and certainly a role we have in education as instructors, but to framing the work around design and designing learning experiences, one thing that occurs to me. The other is about we don't know what we don't know, and how this might transform education long term. I think that, again, with the best intentions, at the risk of being redundant, we took what we knew, even the most innovative of us, took what we knew of a brick and mortar experience of education, and then very quickly tried to recreate that in a different kind of box, if you will, but a box that is perhaps an LMS or perhaps whatever you would assign as a description. And in doing so, I think it's inherent upon us to think of not just this as a temporary solution, but that we really leverage all of our resources and brain power to figure out how we can transform education so that this is an option for all kids long term. And then I think of some of the challenges. We're hyper-focused now because of the accelerated timelines we've had to follow on, what will the curriculum be, the connectivity issue, which is very critical, the deployment of devices, beginning to look at, or perhaps maybe many have already invested or front-loaded the support for teachers and how do we deliver instruction in this environment. But I think we have to get to a point to the things we've raised already related to management of time, removing this, what I think many would call a logistics nightmare from administrators and educators. And I do believe there's some solutions out there to be had. I think also what resonates with me, and I know I'm kind of going all the way around the world, and my answer is, and I alluded to it earlier, we don't know what data to collect. As we all are speaking to our concerns for teachers and the heavy lift they have right now, how do we know in this environment which teachers need additional support and guidance? How do we know what does engagement look like for students and teachers and parents in this environment, and how do we collect that? Are there new ways of doing that to inform our practice? And more importantly, back to my earlier conversation about or remark around Zoom bombing and the ingenuity of our youth. One thing I think we're missing in the conversation that I remember playing in a game, Leilani, that you designed, is the social currency, the social aspect of learning. before we would probably be somewhat critical, or maybe it's just in my area of the world, of lost instructional time to social interaction in a Zoom room. And now it's one of the most critical things that, using my husband's example, that he does to increase engagement. So how are we leveraging social or providing social currency for our students in this space? The adults turn pretty quickly on a dime, and we I don't know about you, but there have been online wine tasting, cheese tastings, where we all sit in a Zoom room and do those kinds of things. There's virtual doctor's appointments, and I'm not sure that we've replicated that for our students just yet. And I think part of that is because we've taken a brick and mortar frame and applied it to a digital box, if you will. That's my response.
Yeah, I love those comments. Yeah, we're everybody in America and maybe the world has figured out almost everything can be done online, and we all want to move out of cities now and run and go have a farm finally, and at least that's where I'm standing from. But the only thing is, like, we can't get haircuts yet, so that's a problem.
You come to Texas. That was, yeah. I've been back at that hairdresser for 2 months. So,
yeah. So, Dr. Blackman, I want to come back to you. So I'm really glad that we have the 3 different, angles here in this conversation, because you can hear from Dr. Terry's viewpoint sort of what's been percolating, at that level, the TEA level, and other big districts. And also you're looking at things like, here's my burdens, here's what we're looking at. So what are you concerned about in terms of going, for the rest of this year, what you don't know?
Well, I think one thing that I want to say, you asked the question a minute ago, Leilani, about, and I want to go back to it real quick, is that how do we see technology? I mean, how do we see education changing as far as what we've been going through now? And I just want to say I don't think we'll go back to what it looked like before, but I think that that's a good thing. Only in the fact of our teachers are learning the tools. Instructional technology has been around for a while. Originally I was on the instructional technology team for the district for 6 years here in HISD, and all of our high schools are 1-to-1, and so it was a hard feat really trying to get the teachers to learn to accept the technology, right? But now that they have it, some of them embraced it, some of them didn't. But now that they're submerged into it. My talk to them when I work with them is that it may be hard on this front end, but in the long run, it's going to be so much smoother the next few years, because your work is already done for the most part, just some tweaks here and there. But embracing the technology is going to be a game changer in the years come when we really do go back to face-to-face classrooms.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right about that, because my conjecture this is now coming from a techie viewpoint after I spent 4 years of my career in the encryption software market, which is like sort of the brain surgery level of algorithms. Encryption is, you're right in that the setting of the pathways, the getting all your stuff out of your file cabinets, right, now codified into hopefully the correctly labeled and tagged file folders or LMS lessons or understanding of modules in courseware and all of your other sites and activities that you're going to put into the game plan, including, running projects at home, right, for kids, or running projects in the classroom. Just getting all that codified is great. And I think you're totally right about that. The only problem that I'm speculating is coming down the pike is this, and that is the pieces, the technology pieces, as well as the knowledge itself. Because we all know it was only, a handful of years ago, we didn't worry about certain things that are culturally now really a big worry. So the knowledge changes, and it sort of shifts language here and there a little bit. So you got to change stuff a little bit, tweak it here, tweak it there, putting a whole new stuff in. And then here's the other real clincher: technology changes, right? So you may have a totally nailed your subscription to this one website, and you think you got it all down, and then they change their navigation. Somebody else buys it. It gets wrapped into something else. It maybe even gets killed off, right? Some other company just buys it to trash it, like, you know, capitalist raiders kind of a thing. They just come in like, no, we're not doing that anymore, we have something else. So there's the mutation of those two things constantly sort of wrecks continuity of operation. So from that perspective, I think we have a long road ahead of us. No matter what we do, we've left that world of, you might have used the same textbook for 6 years back in the day. So the complexity is now dimensionally several levels higher, and that not going away. I just fear for teachers, you know, so because those two things are going to keep changing. So any comments on that, Dr. Blackman?
I'm sorry, I had to step away
No,
for
no.
a moment. They had an impromptu faculty meeting, and I'm about to have to go show the teachers how to access a Google attendance form that I created.
So we probably need to let you go then, and we'll just continue with Dr. Terry and Dr. Murphy. But
I can mute for a minute. I just need to show them. It'll just take a second. I just need to step away. So I missed your question though. What did you?
okay, I'll come back to you then. I'll come back to you.
I apologize.
I'm gonna go to Dr. Murphy then. Do you want to answer that
question.
same sort of question? Yeah.
Yes. And so right now I'm dealing with a situation and it's escalated up from a principal to someone, an assistant superintendent, is that we have teachers that had old document cameras, older ones, and they were used to using that technology. And now we've just replaced their desktop to a newer version, and that document camera is obsolescent. So they're like, oh my gosh, the teachers are already fragile and they don't know how to do this in a different way. So we are trying to take some people and show them, here's a different way to do this, and understand. There's two things of, I guess I'm seeking for understanding with other staff members. One is how to deal with obsolescence and things that do move because of in that technology world. So making that, learning to be flexible and make that adjustment and learn a new way is that's a challenge, because, and when you are already in this fragile state, so to speak, of the unknown, and you are a teacher that's used to, you know, your pathway is set, you've been doing this, and too much change is coming at you too quick, then, you know, there's that, well, maybe I need to retire kind of thing. And right now we can't lose good teachers. We need them to just hang in with us and try to provide that support as much as possible. So we had that end of teaching others what happens with the obsolescence. The other part that I see coming is that as we begin to make more things automated, and we are taking those different wonderful applications from our vendors, and they are actually meeting standards that for different data standards, so that we can take our student information system, and we can now customize their groups and make those small groups for them in teams, or that we can utilize, like we use ClassLink and OneSync to sync things through. But they want it today. And in fact, I had a conversation with some directors today saying, I want you to understand, when something happens in this system, then it flows to this system and it flows to this. And it may take 24 hours because that's the sync process for it to flow through and what it has to flow through. So I think there's two things that we are having to make sure they understand is, what to do with obsolescence, that change, and that things don't happen as quick as they would like, even though we're providing you more services and more accessibility.
Yes, yes. So the point is that the pace of change, because there's now a new landscape of many more pieces that are all interchangeably mutating in different directions all at once. And we have a mass retirement undergoing, so we have new people coming into the state anyway. And now we've got alteration of space and time. I don't think there could be a more perfect storm. But that issue of how you manage what is now a never going away complexity. Coming back to you, Dr. Terry, any comment on that?
I'm just realizing, and actually look forward to thinking more on this, is in essence the building blocks of how we educate students, as simplistic as that sounds, have really changed. And have we given those building blocks a label and prioritize them, if you will, to know what needs to happen first, what needs to happen next, and so forth and so on. And then how do we activate them in a way that is efficient and effective? Because it really is a complex undertaking with so many moving parts and so many unknowns, as we've alluded to throughout our conversation today.
Yeah, and I think the tone of what we've been saying here is that we've, and this is sort of the mood nationally, is we've been in a mad scramble. We've accelerated the timeline. We're neck deep in, we're not just, up to our knees anymore. And we're looking around going, wow, we're some of us are drowning. Like this, there's a lot of drowning going on. And it's really a moment of where are we going? And the fact that the three of you, I don't know if Dr. Blackman's back on yet, the three of you are already there looking at and poking at, like, hey, this is an issue, and hey, that's an issue. I think what we need to do as Learning Council is just keep bringing these all up on a national level. Here we are in South Texas with you guys. We're going up to LA in the next week. We're doing theirs. We're doing New York and New Jersey the same week, coming back into doing North Texas. And then we've got, like, I don't know, 8, 9 other regions that we're doing this year. So you're going to keep poking this bear because the ball needs to move forward, because I am predicting that the overwhelm and because the landscape itself is like you left, the early games we played on the green screen when we were kids, and now it's like fast-paced Minecraft everywhere and everything. It's not a human scale anymore. So the expectations we have on teachers, it's too much, and we're gonna wreck them soon. And so the model conversation, I'm just gonna keep poking that bear. I think I have to, because I'm back here at a national level looking at everybody, what we see happening in news, what we see coming in off of our big national surveys, and even really, a lot of these conversations. I'm proud of everybody for everything that they've been doing, and all the bits and pieces, and the courage and the charisma and the 18-hour days. But I think there has to be this sort of level of conversation that goes, okay, where are we going for real? Like what's actually happening?
It's true. Lonnie, what occurs to me as you're sharing, not to interrupt, but I just did.
No, go ahead.
We're asking these questions when I reference the building blocks, I keep thinking, so what do we need to keep top of mind? Because sometimes when you have such a sense of urgency, we talked about this the other day, we're working busily, but sometimes not thoughtfully with the best of intentions. How do we stay motivated? How do we maintain the victories that we can celebrate, that we have accomplished to date in this situation? How do we track on our progress? What are the new tools for our daily work? How do we interact and explore, together, individually? How do we share our stories? Because all of those things, so really I'm just saying thank you in a long way, help us shape the solution. So
Yeah.
thank you for poking the bear.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Blackman, are you back yet? I'm not sure if you're back yet. She must be still sort of doing her training. Okay, so Dr. Murphy, you want to make any other comments about what we've been talking about? And then I'm probably going to be wrapping up for us here. It's been almost an hour.
I through all of this, I sometimes wonder if we need to step back and maybe look at what do we have that we could take off? What could we do without, or so that the burden's not so heavy on everyone? And I think about, of course, I've been in this business a long time, and I think about what I did, you know, in the classroom in the late 70s, that it seemed like a simpler time. And but I wonder, can we, with the technology, go to a simpler time and look at what's really necessary? Is it, are we so competitive with each other? I know that, I'll be honest, I am. And it's so easy to look at what other schools and other school districts say, by golly, I got to do that too, or we got to do that too. So as an administrator, what am I doing to cause some of that burden on my teachers? And how can I help them? Or how can we look at getting a better balance of what we call screen and green, or which is really a balance of work and life, and go back to that time? You know, that's a whole nother question we could get into. But
Yeah, definitely. But it's a great viewpoint. I'm so glad you shared that, because I think there does need to be, we had another superintendent one time say they're in selective retirement of things, digital things and digital duties. So you're absolutely right, but the moving back to a simpler time, like what exactly do you have to do and what you can let go? I love that. I wish I could say, let's get every district to do that, you know, moment. You know, kumbaya moment. Let's come together. Like, what do we hate? Attendance taking. What do we love? You know, we hate that. You know? So yeah. So those are really great comments. Well, you know, you guys have been so super delightful today, and I'm not sure if Dr. Blackman's back, but she was amazing. And you know, Dr. Terry, you know, I admire the heck out of you. And love the fact that you joined us today. And Dr. Murphy, thank you so much. I think we provided a very robust conversation for our audience, and some real intellectual maneuvers people could be making. So thank you all very much. I'm going to be ending off here. Any last comments?
No, I just wish everybody the best. And if you find that magic, please continue to share your stories so that we can all grow and learn from it.
Will do.
Will do. That.
Yes. I feel that that's what I have to do. Gather it like a hunter-gatherer person from across the countryside, bring it out nationally. It's kind of what I have fallen into in life. It's my role. So thank you guys both so very much. Like I said, I'm going to wrap up here now. And sort of move on to, you know, thanking everybody. We actually aren't asking to see you tomorrow. This was the last day of this event. We're asking you to stay tuned. We will be sending a follow-up email so you have all your resources in case you didn't download your EduJedi dictionary that's in the handouts right here. I'm going to leave this open. I'll put myself on mute, but I'll leave the webinar open so you guys can visibly download the handouts. But thank you guys for being with us. Everyone, and we will be following up with some recordings and some of the other assets that other people showed in a follow-up email fairly soon. Don't expect it tomorrow, but it'll be coming quickly. And thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to someday being able to travel again and see you in person in South Texas. Goodbye for now.